Have you ever stopped to think about what actually gives a government the right to rule? I mean, what's the difference between a government that people willingly follow and one they're trying to overthrow? It's not just about having the biggest army. At the heart of it all is one single, crucial question every leader has to answer.
Right, let's just dive straight into that. How does a government prove it belongs in charge? This isn't just some dusty textbook question. It's literally the name of the game for political survival. And the whole thing hinges on one key idea: legitimacy.
So to really get a grip on this, we have to start with the basics. What does it even mean for a government to have the right to rule? Let's break it down.
And here it is, political legitimacy. Basically, it's the widespread belief among the people that their government's power is justified and that it ought to be in charge. And this is a super important distinction. It's not about whether you like a specific policy, but whether you accept the government's fundamental authority to make that policy in the first place. That acceptance, that's the bedrock of a stable country.
And this is where the rubber meets the road. I mean, think about it. A government with high legitimacy can just get things done. People pay their taxes, they follow the laws, they more or less go along with the program, even when they disagree. But without that legitimacy, you get chaos, protests, and constant challenges to authority. It's a huge deal.
So, if legitimacy is so important, how do governments get it? Well, it definitely doesn't happen by accident. Leaders have a whole range of strategies they use to build and keep the trust of their people. You can almost think of it as a kind of legitimacy toolkit. So let's open it up and see what's inside. Okay, one of the most powerful tools in that kit is something called economic liberalization. The core idea here is pretty simple. If you can make people's lives better financially, if you can create opportunities and raise the standard of living, they are way more likely to support you. It's a classic move: deliver prosperity to win legitimacy. And you can see this strategy playing out all over the globe. China, for instance, set up special economic zones to open up to global trade, and that just kick-started their economic miracle. Mexico jumped into NAFTA, the big free trade agreement, betting it would boost their economy. And countries from the UK to post-Soviet Russia started selling off massive state-owned companies. Each of these was a huge gamble to juice the economy and hopefully boost their own legitimacy.
But, and this is a big but, this powerful tool can sometimes backfire. Big time.
And this gets to a really tricky trade-off. On the one hand, yeah, opening up the economy can lead to amazing growth, which builds legitimacy. But on the other hand, that exact same growth can create massive inequality, wreck the environment, and spark the very protests that challenge a government's right to rule.
And this isn't just a theory, right? We've seen it happen. In Mexico, the Zapatista rebellion exploded as a direct response to the inequality that came with economic shifts like NAFTA. In Nigeria, groups like MEND formed to fight back against the environmental nightmare caused by oil extraction. Even in a place as controlled as China, rapid growth has led to huge public anger over pollution. It just goes to show you, a booming economy doesn't automatically equal a legitimate government.
Okay, so building legitimacy isn't just about the economy. Another huge part of the toolkit is about rights, freedoms, and making people feel like the system itself is actually fair.
And that brings us to civil liberties. These are your fundamental freedoms. We're talking freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion. They are things protected from the government messing with them. And for a lot of people, how well a government protects these rights is a key test of its legitimacy.
Now, if we look at the actual data, we see some really different stories. Take Nigeria. It's shown slow but real improvement over 15 years, which suggests its democratic institutions might be getting stronger. But then you look at Mexico. It's a democracy, but its score is actually going down, which is often tied to big challenges with crime and corruption. And then, all the way at the other end of the spectrum, you have China, sitting at the very bottom, which really reflects its one-party system's tight grip on society.
So, why is China's score so incredibly low? Well, a huge part of it comes down to a lack of transparency. The government operates with so much secrecy, and it controls the media so tightly that it's nearly impossible for regular people to know what's really going on, let alone hold anyone accountable. And that lack of transparency is what allows the abuse of civil liberties to happen.
This brings us to another tool that has two totally different faces: elections. In a democracy, elections are all about building legitimacy through fairness, transparency, and public trust. But in an authoritarian system, they can be used as pure political theater, a way to create the illusion of fairness, while in reality they're just a tool to sideline opponents and lock in the ruling party's power.
So all of this leads us to the central debate at the heart of political legitimacy. What's the best way to get it and keep it? Is it by giving people more choices and a real voice? Or is it by providing absolute, unwavering stability?
So on one side, you have multi-party systems, like in the UK or Mexico. Their claim to legitimacy comes from representation. The argument is that by letting lots of different parties compete, the government better reflects what the people actually want, and that builds trust. But on the other side, you've got one-party systems, like China's. Their claim to legitimacy is all about stability, the idea that consistent, predictable leadership is what people really want and will support.
This quote really just lays out the argument for one-party rule perfectly. The thinking is that if you avoid all the messy back and forth of politics, you get more effective long-term policy. And for people who believe this, that predictability is the ultimate source of a government's legitimacy.
But of course, the counterargument is just as powerful. It says that stability without real representation is basically meaningless. True, lasting legitimacy, this side argues, can only come from a system where people see their own diverse views and interests actually reflected in their government. Because without that trust, stability is just another word for control.
Okay, so we've been through the toolkit, we've heard the big debates. After all this, what really makes a government last? What are the true ingredients for legitimacy? Well, it turns out there's no single magic bullet. The governments that last the longest are the ones that pull off a really complex balancing act. They have to deliver economic growth, but also protect people's basic freedoms. They have to provide stability, but also earn the genuine trust of their citizens and stick to the rule of law. It's that combination that creates legitimacy that can actually endure.
And maybe this is the most important takeaway of all. Legitimacy isn't a finish line you cross. It's not something a government gets once and then has forever. It's a relationship. It is a constant, ongoing negotiation between a state and its people. A process of earning and re-earning the right to govern day after day.
Which leaves us with one last thing to think about. In our modern world, with information spreading at the speed of light and huge challenges that cross every border, is that delicate balance of legitimacy more fragile and harder to maintain than ever before? What do you think?